Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course on heat and mass transfer. We will continue with radiative heat transfer between surfaces and let us start today's lecture by doing a brief recap of what we did in the previous lecture. So, I think view factor charts we have looked at little time back. So, these I am going to go ahead little quickly and this is the slide. Yeah. So, last lecture we had looked at radiative heat transfer between diffuse and gray surfaces. So, if you remember, we started off the lecture by looking at some very complicated scenario as shown over here. This was our same example of cylinder enclosure with the top surface at a particular temperature, bottom surface at another temperature and the side surface at the third temperature. And we were motivated to simplify this problem because using the traditional method of ray tracing, it sounded to be very difficult because all sort of reflections were taking place from all surfaces because all of them are diffuse as well as gray. Then we looked at these three concepts and with the help of these three concepts, it seemed that the thing was very hopeful that it would become very much simplified. And as a proof of that, I had just shared these three expressions over here with the students that of course, very soon things will become simplified, but we have to go through this process. So, radiosity we started off earlier on, with that we wrote this expression over here. So, this is simply conservation of energy. Then we looked at how would we define the surface resistance. So, over there we again defined this second term over here. This is again energy balance, we are getting this. We combine these two equations together and we get very nice equation over here, which I am highlighting with red box. And looking at this equation, we could see that there could be some voltage current analogy with the electrical resistance. And what we figured out over here, that the difference in flux, that EBI minus JI, it kind of appeared like a voltage difference, Q dot I appeared like current flow. So, what remained over here is resistance, and that we defined as the surface resistance, because this thing is defined for surface I. And I kind of cautioned the students that please remember that what we have studied in chapter related to conduction convection, where we looked at the thermal resistance network, there also we made an analogy with electrical resistance, but that thermal resistance network where the driving force was temperature. So, please remember over here earlier on our driving force, which is the voltage in electrical engineering, in thermal resistance network it was temperature. You remember temperature nodes we were taking, but today what we are learning in radiative heat transfer, the driving force delta V in radiation, it turns out to be not temperature, kind of linked to temperature, but some power force. So, it is like difference in flux EBI minus JI. So, please remember that is why I wrote over here, it is not same, these two analogies are different. And formally very neatly diagram we drew over here, and with the help of this diagram we have defined the surface resistance for any surface I which is having emissivity epsilon I. Then today I will looking at this, it also generates a question which I may ask student, that let us say if a body has having emissive, it is a black body, then what will happen over here? If it is black body, epsilon is 1, resistance will become 0. So, it will be a short circuit. So, you remember in electrical engineering, if we remove a resistance, resistance becomes 0, then it is just a conducting wire. So, then throughout the conducting wire voltage is same. So, if it is black body, so I am writing here, if it is black body, then EBI is equals to JI, and that is true as well, we will get it from here also. Then in step 3 we try to define the space resistance, and this third step we divided into two cases. Case A we wrote for black body, and then we got the expression for net rate of heat transfer between body 1 and body 2 as this expression over here at the bottom. Then we looked at case B, which was the actual case of diffuse and grey surfaces. So, surface 1 over here is diffuse and grey, and so is surface 2. So, we went through a elaborate argument and we figured out essentially we can connect these three resistances in series R1 and R2, which are the two surface resistance, and in between will come the space resistance R12 over here. And the units for all resistances shown in this diagram R1, R2, R12, all the resistances units is 1 by meter square. So, it is inverse of area, and formally we have defined the space resistance over here. So, between any two surfaces I and j, we can define the space resistance R I j as this ratio over here. And then once we have looked at the full circuit, because now when the highest voltage, lowest voltage are connected by three resistances, then current will start flowing. In this particular case, heat transfer will start happening, Q dot will start flowing, and I can figure out that rate of Q dot simply as voltage drop divided by the total resistance. This we have learned in school. So, that is very simple physics. So, from this relationship total voltage drop we figured out it is EBI minus EB2, EB1 minus EB2, denominator is total resistance, and we got this very nice and simple expression over here. So, our effort that we have spent in last lecture, that has borne fruit, because now we can claim that we have really simplified that particular problem, and we have obtained a general solution for that. And let us try and see if this general solution. So, today we will try and do 2 or 3 solved example as well. So, let us do the first thing, those equations that we had taken for granted last time. Which equations I am talking about? These red equations over here. This equation 1, equation 2 and equation 3. Now, let us try and see whether these equations I can derive myself. So, I will pick any one of them, maybe I will pick equation number 2 over here and try and see with that expression that we have over here, this expression, will it give me equation number 2. How can I do that? Let me assume that this is our long pipe, cross section of the long pipe. This is surface 1 over here, which is at temperature T1. This is surface 2, which is at temperature T2. Inner radius I am going to assume is R1, outer radius is R2. And what I want to calculate over here is what is the net rate of heat transfer between these two surfaces, provided I know their emissivities as well. So, inner emissivity is epsilon 1, outer emissivity is epsilon 2. Now, what I will do first is draw the space, the radiation resistance network over here. So, I will have the two external nodes. The first one I will call as EB1, this one I will call as EB2. Because I have less space over here, I will draw it in the zoomed out way fashion over here, because here I have very less space. So, I am going to make it big. This is EB1, this is EB2. I hope the students realize that what I have shown in this green diagram over here on the right hand side, it is exactly analogous to what we were studying in last class over here. So, I am putting a blue star on the left side. So, these two are exactly analogous. How are they exactly analogous? Because we have these two surfaces which are having certain temperatures which are known to us, certain areas and certain emissivities, and we have to calculate what is the current which is flowing through them, or in this case heat transfer case, what is the rate of heat transfer which is going through them, that we want to find out. Which means I will then start putting 3 resistances over here. So, the first resistance will be the surface resistance for surface 1, the last one will be the surface resistance for surface 2, and the middle one will be the space resistance between surface 1, surface 2. And the answer is so simple. This is the current which is flowing through this, and this value if I have to calculate, all I need to do is use this particular expression from here. So, from here q dot 1 2 directly turns out to be sigma T 1 to the power 4 minus T 2 to the power 4. All I need to do is write the terms for these resistances over here. So, what is the first resistance? 1 minus epsilon 1 divided by A 1 epsilon 1. So, A 1 in this particular case, I believe I can write A 1 area 1 as 2 pi r 1 into L, where I am going to assume that L tends to infinity. So, it will get cancelled out in all the terms. Why am I assuming it? Because it is a very long cylinder. Both cylinder 1 and 2 are very long. Similarly, area 2 I will get as 2 pi r 2 into L. So, this equation, this problem is not very tough, it will just require a lot of cancelling out. Maybe as a example I can solve it one time and then other time students can solve it. Then this one will be 1 by A 1 into F 1 2. So, I think view factor we all are becoming very familiar. In this particular case, what is the view factor? View factor was the ratio of radiation emitted by surface 1 which is directly hitting surface 2 divided that is the fraction of that surface. It is 1. F 1 2 is going to be 1 because all the radiation from surface 1 is hitting surface 2, which means this is simply 1 by A 1. So, I get 2 pi r 1 L. Then I have to write the third term. Third term is 1 minus epsilon 2 divided by 2 pi r 2 L epsilon 2. So, immediately we can see that there are some common terms that I can cancel out. So, I think 2 pi L will cancel out for all the term 2 pi L, and then once we rearrange these particular things, we will directly get that expression that we were looking for earlier. So, that one I can write it directly over here. I think it was something like this. So, it does not get, sorry, one mistake I made, it does not get cancelled out. These terms I can put on the top 2 pi L, and I can take R 1 along with it, then I will divide it by R 1 on the last term. Let me go ahead and do that. I get in that case. So, I will get A sigma T 1 to the power 4 minus T to the power 4. Then what is the first term over here? The first term will become simply 1 upon epsilon 1 minus 1. The second term, this is first term, second term is simply 1, third term will be, I will take a ratio now. So, it will become R 1 by R 2, because R 1 I have taken on top over here. So, that I have to take account of, and that is what I get. So, I think we can see over here 1 will get cancelled with 1, and if I make this thing little bit neat and clean, then can I jump back to the previous slide over here? What I will get is exactly this relationship over here, which means now I can even tell to student that for any two surfaces which are forming an enclosure, it could be in a plane form, one plane on top of another plane, big pipe inside, small pipe inside big pipe, small sphere inside big sphere. In all these cases, I can use, I do not have to remember any of these equations. All I have to remember is one term over here, total voltage drop divided by total resistance. Total voltage drop is simply EB1 minus EB2. Total resistance is for first surface, surface resistance, last surface, surface resistance, then the space resistance in between. So, it is as simple as remembering current is voltage divided by resistance. So, I hope you really understand this particular part now. Very quickly I will do one solved example, so that one numerical also we can do, but this one I am going to do slightly quickly, because I think concept wise it is all clear to us. Okay. So, let us say there are two plane plates over here, they are very large plates, and the temperatures are known to us. First one is 1000 Kelvin, emissivity 0.8, 800 Kelvin, emissivity 0.6, and I need to find out the value of Q dot 12. So, very quickly I can write over here, this one turns out to be simply this expression divided by the total resistance. So, that total resistance will turn out to be 1 minus epsilon plus 1 plus 1 minus epsilon 2 by epsilon 2. If you remember, this thing whole by itself will turn out to be very simple form over here, and both are actually same. So, the many of the textbooks use this particular relationship, but it actually comes from here. So, whichever form we use, we can just plug in all these numbers over here, and what we will get at the end. I think those part I will not do, because anyone with calculator can verify that part. So, for 1 meter square area, I think we are calculating per unit area, that flux which is travelling from here to here, and this is the net flux Q dot 12. It turns out to have this area, and we can clearly see this is the surface resistance for 1, this is surface resistance for 2, this thing was surface space resistance 1 2, which was simply 1 upon A1 F12, and in this particular case F12 is 1. The reason I am doing it quickly, because these are things we are just revising. I think students already remember from the previous and the previous to that one lectures, 2 lectures, we have done it many times. So, I think we have understood it nicely. Now, let me make it slightly more complicated and more interesting also. Let me say this is surface 1 over here, and this is surface 2, but there are not just 2 surfaces, but there is also surface 3 here, and then there is also surface 4 here. Then what is going to happen? In other words, I want to find out in this particular case the value of Q dot 1. Where will such type of a system arise? So, you remember, we will come very soon to our original case where we had a cylindrical enclosure in which top surface, bottom surface, side surface were at different temperatures. Now, we can even have not only have 3 surfaces, we can have 4, 5 or in fact n surfaces over here. So, that one I will show over here. So, this is the nth surface, and in between there are many surfaces. So, I will just show the concept for this particular case, and I may ask the students that there are so many surfaces over here, and each of them they have their own temperature and area. So, this is temperature T1, area A1, T2, A2, T3, A3, T4, A4, temperature Tn, An, and they also have their own emissivities also, because these are all gray and diffuse surfaces, emissivity 3, emissivity 4, emissivity n. So, again student do not need to be worried in this particular case, just remember the simplest concept. All surfaces will have certain surface resistance in front of them. So, let us just draw those. So, let me first focus on the surface 1. This node I will call as EB1, and this node over here, the second node will be J1. The resistance over here is the surface resistance R1, which is given by this expression over here. And the exact same thing will happen at all the surfaces, each of the surfaces. Third surface will have the node EB3, surface resistance R3, then radiosity here J3. Over here it will be EB4, surface resistance R4, radiosity J4. That is the feeling I am getting over here, that students may think it is little tedious, but I will share one experience with the students. If we learn how to do one thing very nicely, then to do it 5 times or 10 times, it does not take much effort. It only takes effort one time to learn it very nicely. So, if I know the concept of space surface resistance, then even if it is not 5 but 20 surface or 100 surface, conceptually I know all of them. In order to solve for 100 surface, I may require a computer to solve it, but concept wise it is totally clear to me. So, please try to have that kind of understanding which I am sharing with student over here. So, this is the way we will draw all the surface resistances. Now, how will we connect them? Which means over here, for the time being, let me hide this surface n. Let me just say that there are 4 surfaces. Then how will we connect them? Then also it is little complicated, that from J1 to J2, J1 to J3. Let me hide also 4 and 3 also. Let me just assume that there are only 2 surfaces, which means I am taking very complicated problem, maybe with 100 surfaces. But just like we remember that story we heard at childhood, that if something is very big and we are not able to solve it, we split it into small pieces, then we will be able to solve each one of them individually and then try and connect them together. So, with that feeling in mind, I am going to ignore for temporarily, I am going to ignore surface 3, 4, 5 and all up till n. Only I am seeing only 2 surface, surface 1 and surface 2. Let us forget everything else. If there is only surface 1 and surface 2, then what will happen? Then answer I think is clear, because last time we already did it. Then problem becomes like this: surface 1, surface 2 directly in series we will connect, which means I will connect like this. And this resistance, what is its name? It is called the space resistance. And what will be its subscript? Because it is between surface 1 over here on the left side and surface 2 on the right hand side, I will call it R12, where expression for R12 we can write over here is simply A1 F12. And I think this becomes very simple. Now, for the time being, let me forget surface 2 and I am having only surface 1 and surface 3. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. I can only have surface 1 and surface 3. I am imagining there is no other surface, only 1 and 3, then how will they interact with one another? Already radiosity J1 has reached here, J3 has reached, they will interact with one another through a resistance which we will call as the space resistance, and the nomenclature will be R13. Now, let me take one step further, forget surface 2, 3 and all other, only 1 and 4 I am seeing, then I will connect them 1 and 4 and I will call this resistance R14. Now, you know the trick, and then put dot 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 over here, and the last one we will call as over here between 1 and n, I will call as R1n. Look how beautifully we are going from the very simple, very complicated case to the simple case, because earlier we did not know how to solve it. Now, at least some part we have solved it partially. Now, let us go back over here, and what we want to do is repeat the same process by forgetting. Now, we have done for surface 1 we have connected all of them. Now, let us do one more level increment. What we are going to do is we are going to forget surface 1 and just pick surface 2, surface 3. Let us go back to the slide over here. So, if I see that surface 2 and surface 3, their radiosity will also interact with one another, is not it? So, here I will also put one resistance R23. Now, I have done between 2 and 3, let me forget 3, I am just looking at 2 and 4. So, then I will connect like this, R24, then finally R25, R26 and then finally R2n. So, I will put over here, over here. So, now with more and more resistance, I think student can immediately see the drawing will become little bit haphazard, but I am very confident that the concept you have understood, right. So, once you know how to do it for 2 surface, 3 surface, this is the process we will keep on continuing, and it will simply keep on going more and more complicated over here. But do not worry, in real life with our human pen and pencil, we generally do not solve so many surfaces, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 we can solve. So, one example I will take over here. So, I will skip over the rest things I will not draw, otherwise this slide will become very complicated. Now, let us go back to our original problem with which we wanted to make it the gray body assumption. So, over here we are having like this, top surface is surface 1, bottom surface 2, side surface 3. So, let me just put some numbers over here. I will not solve it numerically, but I will solve it analytically over here, so that some understanding is there for the students. So, what I want to find out in this particular case, same as earlier, what is the value of q dot 1, q dot 2, q dot 3, q dot 1 2, q dot 2 3, q dot 1 3. So, you remember this was done in previous lecture, and now we have to draw the space, the radiation network, resistance network over here. So, for that let me put some nodes over here. If this is surface 1, this is the node 1, I am drawing in blue color, surface 2 node here, surface 3 node here. Why am I making these nodes? Because these nodes I want to make in large size over here, so that I can then draw the resistance network properly. So, over here I will say, okay, now this is my surface 1 over here. Here I have surface 2, here I have surface 3. And each of these surface, again Ti, Ai, epsilon I are known for all three. So, I am not going to write all of them together. Now, we will follow the same process. I think now students can do it very fast. So, can I do it little fast over here? This will be the first surface resistance R1, surface resistance R2, surface resistance R3. Then I go back to surface 1. What is it across? It is across EB1 J1. This is across EB2 J2, EB3 J3. How will they be connected together? Because now these three radiosities, they will play with one another through the space resistance. They will interact with one another through the space resistance. So, what will this resistance be called? Because it is between surface 1 and 2, R12, R13, R23. How will the current flow in this particular case? Now, I will put some numbers over here. I think this was 1000 Kelvin, this was 800 Kelvin, and this was 500 Kelvin. So, immediately we can see from here maximum temperature is this. So, from here there is no way the current can go up, it is coming down over here. This current which is flowing through this resistance we will call as q dot 1. Okay. It will then split into two branches over here. When it flows through this particular branch through the space resistance 1 2, this nomenclature will become q dot 1 2, this will become q dot 2 3. And I think we remember from last time that it turns out this temperature, this side also the q dot value is actually in this direction. One thing I want to share to the students, if we assume a particular direction of q dot and later on it turns out to be incorrect, it is actually fine, because directions very easily, as well as in current when we are looking at amperes, as well as heat transfer when we are looking at watts, both of them have directions, they are vectors. Current is a vector, rate of heat transfer is a vector, which means if I had assumed it in x direction, that it will come out to be 10 or 20 watt. If it was not correct, I made wrong assumption, it will come out minus 20. That will tell me, okay, it's in this direction, but with minus. So, which means it is actually in the opposite direction. So, I can put, just to begin with, all these red arrows over here in any one over in this particular case, where if value turns out to be negative, then we will figure out, okay, it is going in that particular direction. Which means over here we will have set number of equations and the same number of variables, and we will be able to very easily solve this particular whole exercise. How? Because these things are known to us. All the known values I am going to put in blue. T1, T2, T3 are known to us. which means EB1, EB2, EB3 are known to us. All the resistances are known to us, means R1, R2, R3, they are known to us. Similarly, R12, R13, R23 are known to us. Based on all these known values, slowly we will be able to solve for Q dots and J's, Q dots and J, Q dot and J, and the sum of Q dots will then give further these Q dot 1, 2, Q dot 2, 3, Q dot 2, 3. So, that way I am not going to solve this problem numerically, but I have just shown the process by following what type of an algorithm and following what type of a procedure we can go ahead and solve for the values of Q dot. Reverse is also true. So, please pay attention to students. We will go to the video mode now. What we are seeing is, if I know the temperatures, I can figure out how much heat transfer rate is taking place. Is the reverse also true? If let us say I knew how much heat I am supplying to a surface, what will its temperature be? And the answer is correct, which means in this particular case it may so happen that I have to calculate the value of temperature. And it is true in engineering cases, many times it happens that the heat transfer rate we know that from particular material or particular furnace, this is the rate of heat transfer which is entering a particular wall. Now, the other side of the wall and the top surface, bottom surface, what will be the consequent temperature, that we have to calculate. In that case, same procedure we have to use. It is slightly trickier because we will have to assume some value of temperature, solve for it. So, 1 or 2 iterations we may have to do, but it is not complicated at all. I hope with that understanding students are able to figure out. Please solve it yourself, because this numerical I am not going to solve over here. If you have understood it correctly and you are confident, let me introduce little bit more complexity, because as teacher we always give knowledge to student or share knowledge with students, so that their confidence increases, then things become easy for them, and then we make it slightly more complicated and take it to the next level. So, I am tempted to do that. How do I make the problem more complicated? Till now in radiation we have always assumed that between surfaces, let us say this is surface 1 at temperature T1, surface 2 temperature T2, there is vacuum all around it. So, that it is pure radiation which is taking place, and even if air is in between it, it is not participating, which means it is neither absorbing nor emitting. So, my question to the student is, if real molecules of gas or liquid or solid are present in between over here, they are definitely going to participate. Even in my cylinder example over here, if I put some dots over here, maybe red dot, and what do they represent? They maybe represent some gas over here. And what could be this gas? It could be oxygen, nitrogen, even water vapor. It can be unburnt hydrocarbon also, or even some actual hydrocarbon. It can be CO2. So, the question comes, even water vapor, it can be liquid water also. I can fill a container full of liquid water. So, liquid H2O. So, under what conditions do materials start absorbing or participating in that particular process? So, the answer turns out to be, if the wavelengths are such in which their absorption spectrum lie, then those gases will start absorbing, their temperature may increase, and if the temperature becomes sufficiently high, then they even may start emitting back. So, there are very lot of examples in which the furnace temperature is so high that we can see inside that flame is actually visibly hot. So, those particles which are present inside the flame, it could be in a forest fire or it can be in a furnace fire, even inside the candle, those particles, soot particles and even gas particles, they may start emitting at that particular point. Now, this happens usually at very high temperature, but even at low temperature gases may actually become participative. We have all heard in news media and related developments that there is a concern about climate change. And if you look at the atoms and molecules we have written over here, there are two of these gases, one is methane and one is CO2 and even H2O to some extent, which are very, they are kind of the gases which can lead to the greenhouse effect, because they can absorb in the infrared spectrum of those radiations, especially which are emitted back by the planet Earth. So, the short wavelength coming from sun, some part is absorbed by CO2 and methane and water vapor, but when it is reflected back, then predominantly it is mostly in infrared, and at that point, while the incident is coming, radiation is coming from sun, and while it is emitted back by Earth, both cases these gases are actually strongly absorbing under certain spectral regions. So, in that case it actually becomes absorbing medium. So, with that background in mind, I wanted to just give a preliminary idea about some of these cases where the medium actually becomes participative. I will keep this topic brief, but I wanted to share it because in today's day and age it is very important to understand it. So, just for the sake of completion, I will write many of those things which I have placed earlier, that many of these gases are actually participative under certain conditions. So, the first physical phenomena which is actually studied in participative media in the simplest form is known as the Beer's law, and I will first write it and then explain the physics behind it. So, if I may ask students, even without knowing what equation this is, first thing I know that this is a ODE, it is an ordinary differential equation. I may be able to even solve it if I know the boundary conditions. Let us say I solve it, I can get something like an exponential function, and it may turn out to be exponentially decaying function, something like this. I do not know anything in physics about this equation for now. Let us say I have just started. I only know it mathematically, and this is the mathematical solution for this particular equation. And what boundary condition I had assumed? Boundary condition was, if I make in this equation x equals to 0, what I get is I lambda naught, because when x equals to 0, this whole thing becomes 1. It is an exponential decaying function. So, I can take some liberty and draw the solution before I am actually going to explain about the equation. This is kind of an exponentially decaying function. So, I can say this is kind of I k x sort of a curve, where x is over here. Then this initial boundary condition told me that at x equals to 0, value is I lambda naught. What is on the y axis is I lambda as a function of. So, this is given as the Beer's law, and now let me go ahead and explain what is happening over here. So, physically let me first draw a system. Let me say that there is a medium. So, this is this medium that I am talking about. It could be a gas, it could also be liquid. In general, this is also true for solids as well. So, any participative media. So, I can give very good example in the class over here. So, the glass which is present inside my glass is over here. So, there is a transparent piece of glass. Through that also some Beer-Lambert law can be applied, because lot of infrared UV radiation may not be able to pass through over here, it may be absorbed. So, then in the very few millimeters, this is in distance, right. So, it could be in 5 millimeter or 2 millimeter. It may not go like this, it may go like the green curve also, right. So, then the whole thing is absorbed. It may not go green, not go blue, it may actually become red also, then nothing is absorbed over here. So, these are different cases I am going to explain in just a little while. So, over here this is this infinite container over here, infinite in the y direction over here, semi infinite, and this whole thing is filled with some participative medium. And now what we are going to study is that concept of the wave that we have talked about. I think if students remember from that class, that if the medium is vacuum, then a sine wave will just travel like this for infinity. But if it is a participative media, with a particular optical depth, let us say till this point, we start off with a big amplitude and then it is becoming smaller and smaller. What is causing this reduction in amplitude? That some sort of absorption phenomena is taking place inside this medium. And I will give a hint over here. This A actually, subscript A stands for absorption, which means we are actually seeing the amplitude of intensity over here, which we are plotting over here. So, this sine wave is kind of showing the amplitude of intensity, averaged value of that, because we are not seeing that fluctuations, but we are seeing the gradual dip in that amplitude. So, what I am trying to say is, if you look at this particular curve over here, the red dotted curve, this red dotted curve looks very similar to the blue curve over here. So, I can write they are kind of similar. And why are they similar? Because in both there is a exponential decaying function. That is the beauty of the Beer's law, which actually tells us all the information provided we know one coefficient over here. So, this coefficient is very important, capital K subscript A, and it is a spectral quantity, that is why it is given with the spectral lambda, and over here it is known as the absorption coefficient. And as you can see by doing the unit balance over here, its unit will turn out to be meter inverse. So, its units is meter inverse. And I will show a method by which I can link it with this particular length over here. This we will call as the optical depth of that particular medium. For instance, in a swimming pool which could be, let us say, 10 meters deep. So, I am drawing a swimming pool over here which is filled with water and it is 10 meters deep. It may so happen, if the correction exact values are taken, that the visible light is able to go, because water is transparent. So, visible light goes over here and it comes back as well, which means if I stand on top of that swimming pool very carefully, I can see the bottom color, the color of the bottom surface, whether the bottom surface is blue, white, green or red, or if something is kept over there. I am assuming it is clean water. So, there is no dirt present over there, but at the same time this is true because water is very good, very nice transparency in the visible spectrum, just like air. Water is very transparent. This is the reason why in oceans there is at lot of depth visible light is able to travel, maybe 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer, and at that point as well there are biological species over there which can go ahead and do photosynthesis. So, even inside 1 kilometer of water there may be photosynthesis taking place. Exact number I do not know, but I am just telling, maybe it is 500 meter, maybe it is 2 kilometer. But at the same time, one more thing is true, that the infrared radiation is highly absorbed by water. So, it may so happen, I have to check at the look at the correct numbers, but I am guessing that maybe 10 to 20 meter depth. So, all the infrared radiation will be absorbed by water, which means water itself treats different wavelengths differently, which means for water, then I can give example, if water is able to absorb all the infrared at 10 meter depth. So, the optical depth of that particular medium for infrared is about 10 meters, but maybe if we look at the very deep swimming pool, we can call oceans as the very deep swimming pool, that there may be even 2 or 3 kilometers the visible light can reach over there, which means the optical depth for visible light in water could be 2 to 3 kilometers, which means it is the intensity could be degrading like the red curve, whereas for the infrared radiation in water it could be degrading like this curve, where maybe I will write over here approximately 10 meters or so. That number I am telling from memory, I may be wrong little bit. So, this is very interesting equation over here. With that, I think we have given the name for this Ka lambda, which is the absorption coefficient, and we have looked at this ordinary differential equation as well as its solution over here. Let us define certain parameters for this participative medium in terms of its spectral transmissivity, spectral absorptivity and the spectral emissivity, which means what we are looking at again is electromagnetic radiation or light or heat wave in the form of this sine wave over here. It is entering this particular participative medium, and at particular length L, okay, I want to figure out for this particular specimen what is the value of its transmissivity. So, what I am looking at is the spectral transmissivity of a particular medium, which is represented as tau lambda. And how is transmissivity defined? So, I will make the x axis over here. So, let us say this is my x axis, this is the y axis, and on the y axis I am plotting intensity. So, I am plotting I lambda x. So, it goes something like this. Okay. This dot over here is x equals to 0, this dot over here is x equals to L, this dot over here is I lambda naught, because this is something we already have in the previous slide. You remember this one, I lambda naught. This is the initial spectral intensity at x equals to 0 before the light has hit this particular material. What is the value of intensity over here? Let me define as I lambda L. Now, I can define the spectral transmissivity ratio as simply it depends on this particular ratio. Do the students agree with this? And I will give some example also. Under what condition is transmissivity 100%? So, if you look at me, what you will see is the glasses that I am wearing, I want to buy it from such a shop where he will give guarantee that, sir, for this particular glass transmissivity is 100%. Then I will be very happy, because I want to have very clear vision. So, I do not want anything to be absorbed by this very thin medium of this very thin glass over here, maybe it is like 2 millimeter to 3 millimeter thick. So, in my glass I do not want the intensity to go down like this red line over here. I want it to stay like the green line over here. So, 100% transmissivity. So, this green line represents 100% transmissivity. How? Because I lambda L numerator is equal to denominator, then ratio is 1, then it is 100%. So, in real life nothing will have transmissivity 100% except for vacuum. Vacuum is the true medium which is having 100% transmissivity, but there is no medium called vacuum. It is the absence, vacuum is essentially absence of a material. So, that aside, even air, water, all will have some finite transmissivity. So, if I write this expression from here, let me apply the Beer's law on the numerator. So, tau lambda is actually I lambda L divided by I lambda naught. What is the numerator? If I apply Beer's law, it is essentially I lambda naught e raised power minus k a lambda into x, and x in this case is L, divided by denominator. So, what I have done is I will write in red color over here, I have taken x equals to L. So, these two terms get cancelled out. So, what I get as tau lambda term is minus I. So, this is very powerful equation which can help us figure out what is the transmissivity in this particular medium. Using this equation, now can I get the value of alpha lambda and emissive epsilon lambda as well? I think so. If I can make an assumption which is actually quite valid, that the reflectivity of this medium is 0, which means if I make the assumption reflectivity is 0, then what equation will I get? I will get alpha lambda reflectivity lambda, tau lambda is 1 for each. This is a spectral equation because it depends on wavelength. And how can I assume reflectivity is 0? If some medium is uniform, if I am swimming inside a swimming pool, water is same throughout me, then laws of physics tell then we shouldn't expect any reflection to take place. On the other hand, when there is a change in medium, for instance, when light is travelling in air, then suddenly it enters this glass, then again it goes through the air, then into my eye, then when there is change in medium, reflection will take place. And I think in the lens in this film you can see reflection of this light coming from here, and that is because when light is travelling from air to this particular glass, most of it is going into my eye, but some part is getting reflected over there. So, you can see some reflection on the lens. So, if there is this uniform medium is there, then I can write it is uniform medium, then it is a very good assumption rho will be equals to 0. So, when rho equals to 0, then what is the value of alpha we get? Alpha is simply 1 minus tau lambda. Tau we have from here, black star over there. So, alpha lambda turns out to be 1 minus e raised to power minus k a lambda L, and this is same as epsilon lambda as well. How? Thanks to Kirchhoff. So, Kirchhoff's law tells me that both these quantities I can write same. Please check spelling of Kirchhoff, I think double H, Kirchhoff's law. So, this is very interesting. Okay. So, we have looked at the basics because we are only going to cover some preliminary basics of the participative medium. Now comes the question that most important. I think equations are very straightforward because it is simply one variable ODE, first order, concepts are very clear. Now, let me try and look at the interesting part, and to me the most interesting part is this red variable over here k a lambda. And why is it most interesting? Because just by changing the value of absorption coefficient k a lambda, I can drastically change the curves over here, which means I can write this over here in red ink like I am writing over here. In this direction k a lambda is increasing, in this direction k a lambda is increasing. So, here the curve has become little bit messy. Let me draw it in the new, which means if I have I lambda x as a function of x. So, I is the radiation intensity, lambda is there, it means spectral radiation intensity. At x equals to 0, value is I lambda naught, that is this particular point, which means once it enters the medium. So, this whole part is the medium. So, medium starts from here, and this is where x also starts from. Now, depending on the value of k a, the intensity can remain straight also, which means there is no change in intensity. So, we can then, because I can write over here I lambda x so how can it remain 1? If the exponential term is 1, it means either x is 0 or k a lambda is 0, which means here k a lambda is 0. Then if I make it slightly bigger, maybe k a lambda is 1, k a lambda is 5, and what are the units? These are all meter inverse, meter inverse, meter inverse. K a lambda may be 20, and then I want to make it very, very high. All absorption takes place immediately over here. Look high, then k a lambda is very high, maybe it is 1000 meter inverse. And this is very interesting. What it means is, if the k a lambda value is very high, then the optical depth, which is kind of k a lambda, and this is in meters, is very, very low, which means the distance that particular radiation travels in the medium is very low, and this is the case in most of the solids that we see around us. That is why those solids are not transparent. So, if I am holding a plastic pen in my hand or a metallic pen in my hand, or these notebooks or paper or anything, that is behaving in a different way, all those solids compared to the solid which is in my hand, which is this particular glass over here. So, this is the glass over here which is having the very low value of Ka lambda. So, ideally vacuum has 0 value of Ka lambda, then you have air, then water and glass. So, these are all transparent material, diamond is transparent, and as we go in this particular direction, for metals especially, the Ka values are very, very high. The higher they are, it means in very small distance all of the wavelength is actually absorbed, all of the amplitude is absorbed, all the energy is gone. I think I am reaching the near the end of this lecture, but before I stop, even though it is an advanced topic over here, I want to share some insight about the value of Ka lambda. So, the expression for Ka lambda for simple uniform material with no impurities can be given by this expression over here. So, 4 pi is a constant, lambda is wavelength. What is this kappa? The Greek symbol kappa, and it can be related to the complex refractive index like this. So, here this is the refractive index of any particular medium. It can be for aluminum, for glass, for air. Then this is the index of refraction, and this is something that we study in school when we are looking at Snell's law. Then when we are looking at refraction, n1 sin theta 1 equals to n2 sin theta 2. You remember we are looking in a slab, then this goes like this, then refraction takes place, then over here. So, there is change in angles on both these particular direction. This was theta 1 from rarer to the denser medium, that is this particular value, and then this kappa is the index of absorption. So, I will make it in black color because this is the one, this is kappa, this is the Greek K kappa, this is the one which influences the value of Ka lambda, and Ka lambda is the one which influences how much drop in intensity takes place as a function of distance. So, I just wanted to present an introduction to this topic because it is for advanced cases, but please remember that participative media becomes very important under certain conditions. Only in those conditions where it is not important, then we can assume that there is vacuum which is there between different surfaces, and we can solve the problem easily. When there is participative media, then we have to take account for that and look at the values of transmissivity, spectral transmissivity and absorptivity from these relationships over here. So, I think with that I will conclude this particular lecture, and in the last series of lectures we have completed the analysis for radiative heat transfer, and very soon we will start a very interesting topic which is mass transfer. So, there we will see lot of interesting concepts, and I will be happy to explain it to students. Thank you.